The kitchen smelled like burnt coffee and yesterday's regret. I wiped down the counter for the third time that morning, my hands raw from the cheap dish soap I bought in bulk from the dollar store. Through the smudged window of my tiny diner, rain streaked down in gray rivers, blurring the street into watercolor shades of concrete and despair. My daughter's lunchbox sat on the counter, pink, decorated with fading unicorn stickers she'd applied herself 2 Christmases ago. Inside, a peanut butter sandwich, an apple with a bruise I'd carefully cut away, and a juice box I'd gotten on sale. It wasn't much, but it was something. It was always something, even when I had nothing. Table 4 needs a refill, sweetheart. Jerry's voice cut through my thoughts. My manager, a 60-year-old man with kind eyes and a beer belly, gestured toward the window booth with his coffee pot. I grabbed the pot from the warmer, feeling the heat seep through the thin handle. My feet ached in shoes held together with superglue and hope. 3 double shifts this week, 4 next week. Rent was due in 6 days, and I was still $200 short. The diner's bell chimed. I didn't look up immediately. I'd learned not to expect much from the sound anymore. Just another tired soul looking for cheap eggs and cheaper conversation. But something made me glance toward the door. He stood there. Not a customer. Not yet. Just a boy, maybe 16, with clothes that hung off his thin frame like borrowed skin. His hair was dark, matted from the rain, and his eyes, God, his eyes, held the kind of hunger that had nothing to do with food. I'd seen that look before, in my own mirror, years ago. "Sit anywhere you'd like," I called out, my voice softer than usual. He hesitated, water pooling beneath his worn sneakers. His gaze darted around the diner, at Jerry behind the grill, at the 2 truck drivers nursing their coffee in the corner booth, at me, calculating, afraid. "It's okay," I said. "Really." He moved like a stray cat, all caution and coiled energy, sliding into the booth nearest the door. Escape route. I recognized the strategy. I approached with the coffee pot, though I could already tell he was too young for it. Up close, I could see the grime under his fingernails, the hollow of his cheeks, the way his shoulders curved inward as if trying to make himself smaller. "Coffee?" I asked, already knowing the answer. I don't have money." His voice cracked. Shame colored his pale cheeks. My heart twisted. I glanced back at Jerry, who was studiously focused on his grill, pretending not to notice. He was good like that. "Good thing it's free," I lied. "Cook made too many pancakes this morning. They'll just go to waste. You'd be doing us a favor." His eyes widened. Hope and suspicion warred across his young face. "I'm serious," I said, gentler now. "Can't stand wasted food. Stay there." I didn't wait for his answer. In the kitchen, I loaded a plate with pancakes, eggs, bacon, more than we'd give a paying customer. Jerry raised an eyebrow but said nothing, just slid the food across the counter to me. The boy ate like he was being timed, like someone might snatch the plate away. I refilled his orange juice twice and pretended not to notice the tears that slipped down his face as he chewed. "What's your name?" I asked, wiping down the booth next to his. "Marco," he mumbled through a mouthful of eggs. "I'm Elena." I smiled. "You live around here, Marco?" His jaw tightened. "Sometimes." I understood. Sometimes meant nowhere. Sometimes meant wherever night caught you. "Well, Marco, I work breakfast and lunch shifts every day except Sunday. If you're ever hungry." I let the offer hang in the air between us. He looked up at me then, really looked, and I saw something shift behind his dark eyes. Gratitude, wariness, the beginning of trust. "Why?" he asked. "Because I know what it's like to be invisible," I thought. "Because someone once fed me when I had nothing. Because my daughter has food in her lunchbox, and you have nothing. Because everyone deserves breakfast," I said simply. Marco became a fixture in my life like morning coffee and aching feet. Every day for 3 weeks, he appeared around 9 o'clock, after the breakfast rush but before the lunch crowd. Always the same booth, always the same haunted look that gradually began to soften. We didn't talk much. He wasn't ready for questions, and I wasn't the type to pry, but I learned things anyway. The way he flinched at loud noises, how he always sat facing the door, the scars on his knuckles that spoke of fights I couldn't imagine. I brought him extra food wrapped in foil. He never asked, but he always took it, stuffing it into his backpack with shaking hands. "You're gonna get yourself fired," Jerry warned one afternoon, watching me pack another to-go container. "Then I'll get fired feeding someone," I shot back. Jerry just shook his head, but I caught the small smile tugging at his weathered face. It was a Thursday when everything changed. The morning started normal enough. Marco arrived right on schedule, rain-soaked and shivering. I brought him hot chocolate first. He preferred it to coffee, and a plate piled with French toast. "Extra cinnamon," I said, setting it down. "Just how you like it." The smallest smile ghosted across his lips. "Thanks, Elena." I was refilling salt shakers at the counter when I heard it. The low rumble of engines outside. Multiple engines. The kind of sound that makes your instincts scream danger. Through the window, I watched 4 black SUVs pull up to the curb in perfect formation. Expensive. Sleek. Wrong for this neighborhood where cars held together with duct tape and prayer. My stomach dropped. The vehicles sat there, engines running, windows tinted so dark they looked like voids. No one emerged. They just waited. "Elena?" Marco's voice was thin, afraid. I turned. He'd gone pale, his fork clattering to the plate. His eyes were locked on those SUVs, and the terror in them made my blood run cold. "You know them," I whispered. He didn't answer. Couldn't answer. He was frozen, trapped between the table and window, breathing too fast. The driver's door of the front SUV opened. A man stepped out. Tall, broad-shouldered. Even from this distance, I could see the sharp cut of his suit. Charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, probably worth more than 6 months of my rent. His dark hair was styled with precision, his movements controlled, predatory. He wasn't alone. 2 more men emerged from the second vehicle, thick-necked, cold-eyed, hands resting casually near their jacket pockets in a way that suggested weapons, security, muscle. The man in the suit surveyed the street with the air of someone who owned it, then his gaze fixed on the diner. "On us, Marco," I said quietly, not moving toward him, not wanting to spook him further. "Marco, who is that? I have to go." He started sliding out of the booth, his movements jerky with panic. "I have to." The diner's bell chimed. He stepped inside. Time seemed to slow, the air growing thick with something I couldn't name. The man, because he was no boy, despite what couldn't have been more than 28, maybe 30 years, filled the doorway with presence alone. Up close, he was devastating. Sharp jawline shadowed with deliberate stubble, eyes the color of espresso, dark and bottomless, and currently locked onto Marco with an intensity that made my skin prickle. There was something beautiful and terrible about him. Like a blade catching light, the scent reached me even from across the room. Expensive cologne, leather. Something darker underneath, power, danger. Every instinct I'd honed through years of survival screamed at me to look away, to make myself small, to disappear. Instead, I stepped between him and Marco. I don't know what possessed me. Stupidity, maternal instinct misfiring. The same reckless courage that had gotten me pregnant at 19 and left me raising a daughter alone. "Can I help you?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. Those dark eyes shifted to me, really looked at me for the first time. I felt it like a physical touch, his gaze dragging across my face, down the faded uniform that had seen better years, back up to meet my eyes, assessing, calculating. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe. Interest. "I'm here for the boy," he said. His voice was low, accented with something Mediterranean. Italian, I thought, smooth as aged whiskey and twice as dangerous. "He's eating breakfast," I replied, lifting my chin despite the hammering of my heart. Behind me, Marco made a small, broken sound. The man's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "So I see. You've been feeding him." It wasn't a question. "Everyone deserves to eat," I said, echoing the words I'd spoken to Marco weeks ago. "Noble." The way he said it made nobility sound like a crime. He took a step forward, just one. But the two men who'd followed him inside shifted positions, flanking him with military precision. Jerry had gone very still behind the grill. The truck drivers were staring into their coffee like it held the secrets of the universe. Marco. The man didn't raise his voice, didn't have to. Authority rolled off him in waves. Come here, don't. The word left my mouth before I could stop it. He's just a kid. Those eyes locked onto mine again, and this time there was heat in them, anger. But something else too. Something that made my pulse spike for entirely different reasons. And you are? Elena. I swallowed. I work here. Elena? He repeated my name like he was tasting it, testing how it felt in his mouth. Do you make a habit of interfering in things that don't concern you? I make a habit of protecting kids. A muscle ticked in his jaw. Behind him, one of his men shifted, hand moving toward his jacket. The man held up one hand, a subtle gesture, but his guard froze immediately. Protective, he murmured, still watching me. Brave. Foolish. He stepped closer, near enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could feel the heat radiating from his body. Do you know who I am? I shook my head. Good. Another step. We were too close now, inappropriately close. I could smell his cologne stronger now, mixing with something uniquely him. Keep it that way. He moved past me, so close his shoulder brushed mine, sending an unexpected jolt through my body, and walked to Marco's booth. Marco was crying silently, tears streaming down his young face. You stole from me, the man said quietly. I'm sorry, Marco choked out. I'm so sorry, I was hungry. I didn't know it was yours. You stole from my warehouse, took merchandise worth $50,000 and sold it to my competitors. My heart stopped. $50,000. Warehouse. Merchandise. Oh God, please, Marco begged. Please, I'll pay it back. I'll do anything. You will. The man's voice carried the weight of inevitability, of sentences already passed. But first, you're going to explain to me why I've been watching you for 3 weeks. Why instead of running, you came here, every single day. Marco's terrified gaze found mine. Because she fed me, he whispered. The man turned, looked at me again. Something shifted in his expression, something calculating and dark and possessive that made my breath catch. Did she? It wasn't a question. He walked back toward me with predatory grace. Stopped so close I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. What's your full name, Elena? Elena Martinez. And you live where? Every self-preservation instinct I had screamed not to answer. But those eyes, they promised consequences for lies. Maple Street, apartment 2B. Alone? My hands clenched. With my daughter. She's 5. Something flickered across his face. A daughter. He reached into his jacket. I flinched. I couldn't help it. But withdrew only a phone. Sleek, expensive. He spoke into it in rapid Italian, too quick for me to catch more than a few words. When he finished, he studied me for a long moment. You made a mistake, Elena Martinez, he said softly. A beautiful, costly mistake. I fed a hungry kid, I shot back, finding my spine again. That's not a mistake. His eyes darkened. You fed my thief, protected him, from me. He leaned in, his breath warm against my ear, voice dropping to a whisper meant only for me. Do you have any idea what that makes you? I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the dangerous heat of him, the threat wrapped in expensive fabric and intoxicating cologne. It makes you mine, he breathed. Then he straightened, turned to his men. Bring the boy, and her. What? No! I stumbled backward. I didn't do anything wrong. He glanced back over his shoulder, and the look in his eyes froze me in place. You showed mercy in a world that has none. You made yourself visible to me. His smile was sharp enough to cut. That's the wrongest thing you could have done. His men moved forward, and my world shattered like cheap diner porcelain on tile floor. They didn't drag me. That would have caused a scene, and apparently, scenes were beneath men who drove vehicles worth more than my entire existence. Instead, one of the guards, a mountain of muscle with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, simply placed his hand on my lower back, with enough pressure to communicate exactly what would happen if I resisted. I went. Marco stumbled ahead of me, caught between two other men who guided him with the same inevitable force. He kept looking back, his eyes screaming apologies I couldn't accept, because I was too busy trying to breathe through the panic clawing up my throat. My daughter. I managed to gasp as they steered me toward the lead SUV. I have to pick up my daughter from school. She's 5. Please, she... Handled. The man, the mafia boss, because that's what he was, wasn't he? Didn't even look at me as he spoke. He was typing something on his phone, his fingers moving with practiced efficiency across the screen. What school? What time? The question was so unexpected, so bizarrely considerate, that I answered automatically. Riverside Elementary, 3:15. He spoke in Italian again, rapid-fire instructions that made one of his men nod and pull out his own phone. Then those dark eyes finally lifted to mine. She'll be picked up on time and taken somewhere safe until we're finished. Finished with what? My voice cracked. What are you going to do to me? Something almost like amusement flickered across his features. That depends entirely on you, Elena. The way he said my name, rolling the syllables with his accent, making it sound like something exotic and dangerous, sent an unwelcome shiver down my spine. The SUV's door opened, leather interior, tinted windows so dark the outside world disappeared the moment I was inside. The mountain with the scar slid in beside me, boxing me against the window. Marco was shoved into the vehicle behind us, his terrified whimper audible even through the reinforced metal. The mafia boss took the front passenger seat. The driver, an older man with silver hair and dead eyes, pulled into traffic without a word. My hands were shaking. I pressed them against my thighs, willing them to stop, but my body had other ideas. Fear leaked through every pore, mixing with the scent of expensive leather and the cologne that seemed to permeate everything. We drove through parts of the city I recognized, then parts I didn't. The buildings grew taller, cleaner. The cars on the street cost more. We passed restaurants I'd never be able to afford, boutiques with window displays that probably cost more than my yearly salary. 20 minutes later, we pulled into an underground garage beneath a building that stretched toward the sky like a glass and steel monument to wealth I couldn't comprehend. Out. The guard's voice was the first word he'd spoken. Deep, emotionless. My legs nearly gave out when I stood. The guard's hand returned to my back, steadying me or restraining me. I couldn't tell. The elevator was mirrored on all sides. I caught my reflection and barely recognized myself. Pale face, wide, frightened eyes, cheap uniform with a coffee stain on the collar I'd tried and failed to scrub out. I looked like exactly what I was. A poor single mother who'd stumbled into something so far beyond her understanding that she might as well have been on another planet. The mafia boss stood beside me, and the contrast was devastating. He belonged in this mirrored box, in this building, in this world of power and polish. I was a smudge on his expensive reality. The elevator climbed and climbed. My ears popped. When the doors finally opened, I stepped into what could only be described as a penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. White marble floors caught the afternoon light and threw it back in blinding sheets. Modern furniture that probably had Italian names I couldn't pronounce. Art on the walls that might have been originals. It was beautiful and cold and absolutely terrifying. Sit. The mafia boss gestured to a leather sofa that probably cost more than my car. When I hesitated, his jaw tightened. Sit, Elena. I'm not going to ask again. I sat. The leather was butter soft, and I hated how good it felt after hours on my feet. Marco was brought to a chair across from me. He looked even smaller here, swallowed by the opulence. Tears still tracked down his face. The mafia boss poured himself a drink from a crystal decanter, amber liquid that caught the light. He didn't offer me any. Instead, he leaned against the massive desk dominating one side of the room and studied us both like specimens under glass. Marco Russo, he said finally. Age 16. No parents. No permanent address. You've been stealing from various establishments across the city for the past 2 years to survive. He took a sip of his drink. Admirable in a way, enterprising, until you stole from me. I didn't know. Marco's voice broke. I swear, I didn't know whose warehouse it was. Ignorance isn't innocence. The mafia boss's voice remained calm, reasonable, which somehow made it more terrifying. You took merchandise worth $50,000. You sold it to the Volkov family, my competitors, for $10,000, which means you cost me $50,000 in product and another $100,000 in reputation. The numbers made my head spin. $150,000. A lifetime of money. An impossible sum. I don't have it, Marco whispered. I spent it. Food, a motel room for a few weeks. I don't have it. I know. The mafia boss set down his glass with a soft click. Which presents a problem. In my world, debts are always paid, one way or another. The implication hung in the air like a noose. No. The word ripped from my throat before I could stop it. I stood, ignoring the guard who immediately stepped closer. He's just a kid. A hungry kid who made a mistake. You can't? Can't? Those dark eyes locked onto mine with laser focus. Who are you to tell me what I can't do? A human being, I shot back, adrenaline overriding self-preservation. Someone with basic decency. You're talking about killing a child over money. I'm talking about maintaining order in my organization, about ensuring that theft has consequences. He pushed off the desk, stalking toward me with predatory grace. But you're right about one thing, Elena. He is a child. Which is the only reason he's still breathing. He stopped inches away, too close. I could see the individual lashes framing his eyes, could smell the whiskey on his breath mixing with that intoxicating cologne. You want to save him? His voice dropped to a dangerous purr. Then you pay his debt. My heart stuttered. I don't have that kind of money. I can barely make rent. I can't... Not money. His hand rose and I flinched, but he only tucked a strand of hair behind my ear with surprising gentleness. The touch sent electricity skating across my skin. There are other ways to settle accounts. Oh God. What do you want? I whispered. His smile was slow, predatory, devastating. I haven't decided yet, but you're going to stay here while I figure it out. I can't. My daughter, she needs me. I have to. Your daughter will be brought here within the hour. She'll have everything she needs. A room, food, safety. His fingers traced down my jaw, tipping my face up to his. Much better than that apartment on Maple Street with the broken lock and mold in the bathroom. I jerked back. You've had someone watching me? I've had someone watching Marco for 3 weeks. You were an unexpected complication. His eyes darkened with something I couldn't name. The interesting kind. This is kidnapping. This is debt collection. He turned away, dismissing me. Matteo, show her to the guest room. Make sure she has everything she needs. And someone get the girl from school. Careful. She's 5. I don't want her frightened. The guard, Matteo, apparently, touched my back again. I wanted to resist, to fight, to scream. But what would that accomplish? He had my daughter's school. He knew where I lived. Running would only make things worse. As Matteo guided me toward a hallway, I looked back. The mafia boss was staring out the windows, his broad shoulders silhouetted against the dying light. Marco sat hunched in his chair, looking fragile and broken. And I wondered what the hell I'd gotten us into by showing a kindness I couldn't afford. The guest room was larger than my entire apartment. King-sized bed with silk sheets, an ensuite bathroom with marble counters and a tub big enough to drown in, a walk-in closet filled with women's clothes in various sizes, tags still attached. I stood in the middle of it all, shaking. A soft knock made me jump. The door opened, and a woman entered, early 50s, kind eyes, wearing a simple black dress and apron. Miss Elena? Her accent was thick, Eastern European maybe. I'm Yana. I help with the house. Mr. DeLuca asked me to make sure you're comfortable. DeLuca. So that was his name. I don't want to be comfortable, I said flatly. I want to go home. Yana's expression softened with something like sympathy. I'll bring you tea. And when the little one arrives, I'll bring her straight here, yes? She won't be scared. The little one. My baby. Sophia. How long? I asked. How long is he going to keep us here? Yana paused at the door. Mr. DeLuca. He's not a patient man, but he's not cruel. Not to children. Not to... She hesitated. Not to those who show kindness. You'll be okay, Miss Elena. Just don't fight him. It only makes things harder. She left before I could respond. I sank onto the bed. I needed to think, my mind racing. Needed to plan. But exhaustion pulled at me. 3 double shifts. The terror of the last hour. The impossible situation I'd stumbled into. I must have dozed because the next thing I knew, the door was opening again and a small voice called out, "Mommy?" Sophia. I was off the bed in seconds, pulling my daughter into my arms, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. She was okay. Whole. Safe. "Mommy, why are we in a castle?" Her 5-year-old voice was filled with wonder, not fear. "It's not a castle, baby. Just a big apartment. The nice man said we're staying for a sleepover." She pulled back, her dark eyes, so much like mine, sparkling with excitement. "He said I can have ice cream for dinner, the nice man. Jesus Christ." "Sophia, who brought you here?" "Mr. Mateo. He was really quiet, but he bought me a juice box on the way. And he let me pick the music in the car." She bounced in my arms. "Can we really have ice cream?" I closed my eyes. Of course DeLuca had made sure she wasn't frightened. Of course he'd turned this nightmare into an adventure for a 5-year-old. It made him more dangerous, not less. "We'll see about ice cream," I murmured, holding her tight. "First, let's get you cleaned up, okay?" I was helping Sophia wash her hands in the impossibly luxurious bathroom when another knock came. Yana entered with a tray, tea for me, milk and cookies for Sophia, and a note. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. "Dinner at 7. Just you. The girl will be cared for. Don't make me come get you. D." The script was elegant, controlled, like everything else about him. Sophia was already reaching for the cookies, chattering about her day at school. I let her talk. Let her normalcy wash over me while my mind spun. What did DeLuca want? What would dinner entail? And why did the thought of being alone with him again make my pulse race with something that wasn't entirely fear? I had 2 hours to figure out how to survive whatever came next. 2 hours to prepare for a predator who'd decided I was interesting. 2 hours before I had to face the man who held my life and my daughter's future in his perfectly manicured hands. At 6:45, Yana returned with a dress. It wasn't flashy. A simple black sheath that fell to just above the knee, elegant without being provocative. The fabric felt like water between my fingers. Probably cost more than 3 months of my salary. "Mr. DeLuca thought you might want something fresh," Yana said gently, laying it across the bed. "There are shoes in the closet that should fit." I stared at the dress like it might bite me. "I'm not playing dress up for him." Yana's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. "He's already seen you in your uniform, Miss Elena. This isn't about impressing him. It's about..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "It's about meeting him on equal ground, as much as possible." She left before I could argue. Sophia was already tucked into the massive bed, drowsy from milk and cookies, a cartoon playing on the television that had emerged from a panel in the wall at the touch of a button. She looked so small in all that space, but content. Safe. That's what mattered. I showered quickly, hating how good the hot water felt, how the expensive soap made my skin feel clean for the first time in years. The dress fit perfectly. Of course it did. DeLuca struck me as a man who noticed details, who planned for contingencies. The shoes were simple black heels, low enough to walk in but high enough to make me feel exposed. Vulnerable in a different way than the uniform had. I left my hair down, damp and curling at the ends, no makeup. I refused to try to be something I wasn't. At precisely 7 o'clock, Mateo appeared at my door. "She'll be fine," he said, nodding toward Sophia's sleeping form. "Yana will stay with her." I kissed my daughter's forehead, breathing in her innocence one more time, then followed the mountain of a man down the hallway. The penthouse had transformed. Soft lighting replaced the harsh afternoon glare. Candles flickered on a dining table set for two, positioned near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The view was breathtaking. Millions of lights spreading out like fallen stars, the river cutting through it all like a dark ribbon. DeLuca stood at the window, his back to me. He'd changed too. Dark slacks, a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle and scattered with scars. His hair was slightly damp, suggesting he'd showered as well. He turned when he heard my heels on the marble. Whatever I'd expected, a leer, a predatory smile, something overtly threatening, I didn't get. Instead, his eyes widened almost imperceptibly, darkening as they traveled the length of my body with an appreciation that felt more dangerous than any weapon. Elena. My name was a low rumble. You look uncomfortable, I finished for him, crossing my arms. Can we just get this over with, whatever this is? A slight smile tugged at his lips. Dinner. This is dinner. Right. Because mafia bosses regularly have dinner with the waitresses who feed their thieves. I'm not the mafia. He moved to the table, pulling out a chair with old-world courtesy that seemed at odds with everything else about him. I'm a businessman with varied interests, some of them less legal than others. That's semantics. It's survival. He gestured to the chair. Sit, Elena, please. The please surprised me enough that I obeyed. He pushed my chair in with careful precision, his hands briefly brushing my bare shoulders. Heat blazed where he touched, and I hated my body for responding. He took the seat across from me, close enough in the intimate setting that our knees almost touched beneath the table. Yana appeared with wine, red, expensive looking. She poured for both of us, then disappeared like a ghost. I don't drink, I said, eyeing the glass. You're nervous. I'm terrified, I corrected. There's a difference. Is there? He lifted his own glass, swirling the wine with practiced ease. Both make the heart race, both cloud judgment, both make people do things they wouldn't normally do. Is that what you want? My judgment clouded? His eyes locked onto mine over the rim of his glass. I want you to relax enough to have a conversation. That's all. For now. The for now hung between us like a promise and a threat. Yana returned with the first course. Something delicate and artfully arranged that probably had a French name. The aroma made my stomach clench with hunger I'd been ignoring. DeLuca watched me take the first bite. Watched my eyes close involuntarily at the taste. Rich, complex, nothing like the diner food I ate standing over the sink. When did you last have a proper meal? He asked quietly. I eat. That wasn't my question. I set down my fork with more force than necessary. What do you want from me? Really? Because this... I gestured at the elegant table, the gourmet food, the wine, isn't about payment for Marco's debt. This is something else. He was quiet for a long moment, studying me with those impossibly dark eyes. You're right, he said finally. Marco's debt is his own. He'll work it off in my organization. Legitimate work, nothing that will endanger him. Warehouse inventory, deliveries. 3 years should cover it. Relief flooded through me. Then why am I here? Because you stepped between me and what was mine. Because you looked at me, at a man you didn't know, who clearly frightened you, and chose defiance over self-preservation. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How intoxicating? My breath caught. I'm not intoxicating. I'm a broke single mother who works 60 hours a week just to keep the lights on. You're a woman who feeds strangers with food she can't afford, who stands up for kids who aren't hers, who walks into danger without flinching. His voice dropped lower. You're extraordinary, Elena, and you have no idea. The sincerity in his tone was worse than any threat. I could fight threats. I didn't know what to do with whatever this was. I'm not staying here, I said, forcing steel into my voice. Sophia needs stability, school, her routine. You can't just... I can. He cut me off, not cruelly, just stating fact. But I won't. Not entirely. You'll go back to your apartment tomorrow. Back to work. Back to your life. Hope sparked, quickly followed by suspicion. Just like that? With conditions. He sat back, his fingers drumming once on the table. You'll have a new phone. You'll answer when I call. And twice a week you'll have dinner with me. Here or wherever I choose. That's insane. I can't just... You can. You will. His eyes hardened slightly. Because the alternative is, I keep you here permanently, make you disappear from that life you're so desperate to protect. Your daughter would be cared for, comfortable, but you'd be mine. Completely. The possessiveness in that last word made my skin prickle. That's kidnapping, I whispered. That's protection. He leaned forward again, his hand reaching across the table to capture my wrist, his thumb pressed against my racing pulse. Do you know what happened an hour after I brought you here? 3 different organizations reached out to my people, asking about the woman I'd taken from the diner. Word travels fast in my world, Elena. And now you're visible. Now you're known as someone who matters to me. I don't matter to you. You don't even know me. His grip tightened fractionally. I know you work 3 jobs to support your daughter. I know you live in an apartment with a broken lock that any amateur could pick. I know you haven't bought yourself new shoes in 2 years because every spare cent goes to Sophia's needs. I know you're terrified right now, but you're still looking me in the eye, still fighting. The accuracy of his knowledge was chilling. You had me investigated, thoroughly. No apology, no shame. I protect what's mine, Elena, and I always know exactly what I'm dealing with. I'm not yours. Not yet. The promise in those 2 words made heat pool in my stomach, but you will be. Because I'm a patient man when I want something. And I want you. I yanked my hand back. You don't know anything about wanting someone. This is just possession, control, whatever game powerful men play when they're bored. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. In one fluid movement, he was out of his chair and around the table, pulling me to my feet. We were too close, his body radiating heat, his hands gripping my upper arms with controlled strength. You think this is a game? His voice was low, rough. You think I collect women like trophies? I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, Elena. I can have anything I want with a phone call. Anyone. But I watched you for 3 weeks through reports and surveillance footage. And you know what I saw? I couldn't speak. Could barely breathe. I saw a woman who gives everything and asks for nothing. Who smiles at a homeless boy like he matters. Who walks through a world that's tried to break her and refuses to stay down. His hand rose to cut my face, thumb tracing my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. I saw someone real in a life full of people who wear masks, and I decided that I would have you, not as a possession, as mine. There's no difference, I managed. There's every difference. His forehead pressed against mine, his breath warm on my lips. A possession sits on a shelf. What's mine is protected, cherished, kept safe from everything that could hurt it, including myself. I don't need protection. Yes, you do. You just don't know it yet. He pulled back slightly, studying my face. 2 dinners a week, Elena. Answer when I call. Let me ensure your safety. That's all I'm asking. And if I refuse? His smile was sad. Then I'll have to keep you here. And I really don't want to do that. I want you to choose this. Choose me. Eventually. The arrogance should have infuriated me. Instead, it terrified me because some traitorous part of my body was responding to his nearness, to the intensity of his focus, to the promise of being wanted this desperately by someone this powerful. This is insane, I whispered. Yes. His thumb traced my lower lip, and I shivered. But you're going to say yes anyway. Because you're smart enough to know that fighting me will only make things harder, and because... His eyes darkened. Some small part of you is curious. About me, about this. About what it would feel like to let someone else carry the weight for once. He was right. God help me. He was right. 2 dinners a week, I repeated numbly. And you answer when I call. What if I'm working? Then you step away and answer. No room for negotiation. I need to know you're safe, Elena. Always. The possessiveness should have repulsed me. Instead, it wrapped around my chest like a vice, squeezing something loose that I'd kept buried for years. Okay, I heard myself say. Okay, I'll do it. The smile that spread across his face was blinding, triumphant. He pressed his lips to my forehead, a gesture so tender it made my eyes sting, then released me and returned to his seat as if nothing earth-shattering had just occurred. "Eat," he said, his voice back to that controlled calm. Yana worked hard on this meal. I sat mechanically, my mind reeling. What had I just agreed to? What had I just started? Across from me, Dante DeLuca watched me with eyes that promised he'd never let me go. And the most terrifying part? I wasn't entirely sure I wanted him to. The next 3 weeks unraveled my life in ways I couldn't have anticipated. True to his word, Dante, he'd insisted I call him by his first name during our second dinner, returned me and Sophia to our apartment the morning after that first meal. But nothing was the same. The broken lock had been replaced with something that looked like it belonged on a bank vault. New windows, double-paned, soundproof, had been installed overnight. The mold in the bathroom had been scrubbed away and treated, the cracked tiles replaced with gleaming white ones that didn't belong in a building like ours. "I didn't ask for this," I'd said into the expensive phone he'd pressed into my hand before I left his penthouse. "I don't need permission to ensure your safety." His voice had been matter-of-fact, brooking no argument. "Get used to it, Elena. I should have fought harder, should have refused. But how did you refuse a man who'd already demonstrated he'd simply do what he wanted anyway?" Work became surreal. Jerry noticed the changes immediately. The way I jumped every time the diner phone rang. The expensive cell I kept checking obsessively. The black SUV that appeared outside precisely at 9 every morning and sat there until Marco arrived for his breakfast. "You in some kind of trouble, sweetheart?" Jerry had asked one afternoon, his weathered face creased with concern. "I don't know," I'd answered honestly. "Maybe, probably." But Marco was thriving. He showed up every day, ate his meal with gradually diminishing fear, and told me about his new job in hushed, awed tones. "They're teaching me inventory management," he'd said one morning, his eyes bright. "Real computer systems, Elena, and Mr. DeLuca. He said if I do well, he'll pay for me to get my GED." The cognitive dissonance of a mafia boss investing in a homeless teenager's education made my head spin. The first official dinner happened on a Wednesday. Matteo picked me up at 7. Sophia already deposited with my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, a grandmother who adored my daughter and asked no questions when I'd nervously requested childcare. The SUV glided through evening traffic to a restaurant I'd only seen in magazines, the kind of place where reservations required months of notice and menus didn't list prices. We were escorted to a private room in the back. Silk-covered walls, ambient lighting. A table set for 2 with more silverware than I knew what to do with. Dante was already there, standing when I entered. He wore a navy suit that probably cost more than my car, his dark hair perfectly styled. But it was his eyes that caught me, the way they heated when they landed on me, traveling over the simple blue dress I'd found in the now fully stocked closet in my apartment. More gifts I hadn't asked for. "You look beautiful," he'd said simply. "You look like you're trying to impress someone," I'd shot back, defensive. His smile had been slow, dangerous. "Maybe I am." That dinner set the pattern. He asked questions about Sophia, about my childhood, about dreams I'd abandoned when I got pregnant at 19. He listened with an intensity that felt physical, like he was cataloging every word, every expression, storing them away. I learned things too, despite my determination not to care. He was 29, not 30. Born in Sicily, raised between Italy and America, his father had built the family business. He still didn't call it the mafia, from nothing, and Dante had inherited it at 23 when the old man died of a heart attack. "Too young," he'd said, swirling wine in his glass. I had to prove myself, had to show the other families I wasn't weak despite my age, by being ruthless, by being smart. His eyes had met mine. Ruthlessness is easy. Anyone can kill, threaten, destroy. Building something that lasts, that requires vision. The second dinner was at his penthouse. Sophia came with me this time. Dante had insisted, had sent Matteo with a car seat already installed. My daughter had been enchanted by the space, by Yana, who doted on her, by By the bedroom, Dante had converted into a child's paradise, complete with toys and books. "You didn't have to do this," I'd said, watching Sophia play with a dollhouse that probably cost more than my monthly salary. "She's important to you." He'd stood beside me, close enough that I could feel his body heat. "That makes her important to me." The possessiveness had shifted somehow, expanded. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about everything connected to me. That should have terrified me more than it did. Instead, I found myself relaxing incrementally, laughing at his dry observations about the people in his world, arguing with him about books. He read voraciously, everything from philosophy to thriller novels, letting him order for me at restaurants because he somehow knew exactly what I'd like. The calls came daily, sometimes twice daily. "Have you eaten?" became his standard greeting. "Yes, Dante. I'm an adult. I feed myself. Humor me." Always that edge of command wrapped in concern. "What did you have?" And I'd tell him, irritated and touched in equal measure, while he listened like my lunch choice was the most important intelligence he'd receive all day. 3 weeks in, everything shifted. I was closing the diner. Jerry had left early for a doctor's appointment when the bell chimed. I looked up from wiping down tables, expecting a late customer. 3 men entered. Not Dante's men. Something about them screamed wrong. Cheaper suits, harder eyes, the way they spread out to block the exits with practiced efficiency. My heart dropped into my stomach. Elena Martinez, the one in front, spoke with a thick Russian accent. Young, maybe mid-20s, with a scar running from his temple to his jaw. I straightened slowly, the dish rag clutched in my hand like a weapon. "We're closed. We're not here for food." He smiled, revealing a gold tooth. "We're here for conversation. About your boyfriend." "I don't have a boyfriend." "No? Then what do you call Dante DeLuca?" He moved closer, his companions flanking him. "We've been watching Elena, watching him pick you up, take you to dinner, send his men to guard you. Very romantic. Also very stupid." Fear lanced through me, sharp and cold. "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult me." The smile vanished. "DeLuca has something that belongs to the Volkov family. We want it back. And you're going to help us get it." "I can't help you. I don't know anything about his business." "You know where he lives, where he eats, when he's distracted." The Russian pulled a phone from his pocket. "You're going to call him. Tell him you need to see him, tonight, at your apartment." My hands were shaking. "And if I refuse?" He pulled up a photo on his phone, turned it toward me. Sophia, walking out of school, her backpack bouncing, Mrs. Chen holding her hand. The world tilted. "Pretty girl," the Russian said softly. "Would be a shame if something happened to her. Children are so fragile." White-hot rage replaced fear. "Touch her, and I'll kill you myself." He laughed. "There's the fire DeLuca likes, but you're not in a position to make threats, Elena. You're going to do exactly what I say, or your daughter disappears. Understand?" I understood. Understood with crystal clarity that I'd been monumentally stupid. That getting close to Dante had painted a target on everyone I loved. That my attempt to save Marco had spiraled into something that could cost me everything. "What do you want?" My voice barely functioned. "Call DeLuca. Get him to your apartment. We'll take care of the rest. You're going to kill him. That's not your concern." The Russian's eyes were dead, emotionless. "Your concern is keeping your little girl safe. Make the call, Elena. Now." He handed me my phone, the expensive one Dante had given me. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold it. I thought about the panic button Dante had shown me, hidden in the phone's settings. One press and his men would swarm. But these Russians were here, in the diner, and Sophia was across town with only an elderly woman for protection. I pulled up Dante's number. It rang twice. "Elena." His voice was warm, pleased. "I was just thinking about you." "Dante, My voice cracked. The Russian's hand landed on my shoulder, squeezing in warning. "I need to see you. Tonight. Can you come to my apartment?" Silence. Then carefully. "Is everything all right?" "Yes, no, I just think, Elena. Give him something. I need to talk to you about Sophia, about..." About schools. Better schools. You mentioned you could help. More silence. Too much silence. Dante was smart, perceptive. Could he hear the fear in my voice, the lie? I'll be there in 20 minutes, he said finally. The line went dead. The Russian smiled. Good girl. Now we go to your apartment. Together. They flanked me as we left the diner, guiding me to a black sedan, not an SUV, I noticed dimly. Cheaper, older. They shoved me into the back seat, one on either side of me, while the scarred Russian drove. My mind raced. 20 minutes. Dante would come. Would walk into an ambush meant to kill him. And it was my fault. My voice that had lured him. Please, I whispered, don't hurt him. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't... Shut up. The man to my left jabbed me with something hard. A gun, I realized with distant horror. You've done your part. Now you sit quiet and watch what happens when someone takes what belongs to the Volkov family. They thought Marco's theft was Dante's doing. Thought he'd orchestrated it, and now they were going to kill him for it. The apartment building loomed ahead. They hauled me out of the car, up the stairs, no elevator in this building, to my door. The new locks were useless when they had me to open them. Inside, they shoved me onto the couch. The scarred Russian checked his watch. 15 minutes, he said. Get comfortable, Elena. You're going to watch this. I sat frozen, my mind screaming. The panic button. Could I reach it without them noticing? Could I? The Russian grabbed my phone from my hand, smiled as he powered it down. No calls. No warnings, just wait. So I waited, counted my heartbeats, prayed to a god I wasn't sure listened to women like me, and when headlights swept across the window 12 minutes later, when I heard the heavy footsteps on the stairs, when the doorknob turned, I screamed. Dante, run! The door crashed open, but it wasn't Dante alone. It was Dante flanked by 6 men, weapons drawn, moving with military precision. He'd known. Somehow he'd known. The apartment erupted into chaos. Gunfire. Sharp cracks that made my ears ring, shouting in Italian and Russian, bodies colliding. I threw myself off the couch, crawling toward the bedroom, toward where I'd hidden Sophia's favorite stuffed bear, anything familiar in this nightmare. Strong hands grabbed me, hauled me up. I fought, screaming, until I recognized the cologne, Dante. He pulled me against his chest, his body a shield, backing us toward the door while his men handled the Russians with brutal efficiency. I buried my face in his shirt, felt his heart hammering against my cheek. I've got you, he growled into my hair. I've got you, Elena. You're safe, but I wasn't safe. Would never be safe again, because I'd just learned exactly what it meant to be Dante DeLuca's. And the cost was written in gunpowder and blood on my apartment floor. The safe house was somewhere outside the city. I'd stopped paying attention to landmarks after the first hour of driving. Shock had settled into my bones like winter frost, numbing everything except the vice grip of Dante's hand around mine. He hadn't let go since pulling me from the apartment. Not in the SUV, not during the tense phone calls he'd made in rapid Italian, not even now as we stood in a spacious living room that smelled of pine and wood smoke. Sophia was already here. Matteo had retrieved her from Mrs. Chen's the moment Dante's men had detected the Russians following me from the diner. She was asleep upstairs, Yana watching over her, blissfully unaware of how close we'd come to losing everything. Sit. Dante's voice was raw, strained. He guided me to a leather couch positioned before a massive stone fireplace. A fire crackled there, orange light dancing across the tension carved into his features. I sat because my legs wouldn't hold me anymore. He knelt before me, his hands framing my face, thumbs brushing across my cheekbones as his dark eyes searched mine with desperate intensity. Did they touch you? The question came out guttural. Did they hurt you? I shook my head, not trusting my voice. Elena. His forehead pressed against mine. Talk to me. Please. They showed me a picture, I whispered, of Sophia, leaving school. They said they'd take her if I didn't. My voice broke. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I led you into a trap. Stop. The word cracked like a whip. He pulled back, His jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. You did exactly what any mother would do. What you had to do. This isn't your fault. They wanted to kill you because of Marco. Because they thought you stole from them. The Volkovs have wanted me dead for years. He stood abruptly, pacing to the fireplace like a caged predator. This was just an excuse, a convenient target. He slammed his palm against the mantel, the sound making me flinch. I should have seen this coming, should have protected you better, should have. You couldn't have known. I should have. He spun to face me, and the anguish in his expression stole my breath. The moment I made you visible in my world, I put you at risk. I knew that. Did it anyway because I'm a selfish bastard who wanted you more than I cared about the consequences. The confession hung between us, raw and bleeding. What happens now? I asked quietly. His laugh was bitter. Now I eliminate the threat. The Volkovs crossed a line tonight, threatening a child, targeting someone under my protection. That can't stand, won't stand. You're going to kill them. Yes. No hesitation, no apology. Every single one who was involved. And then I'm going to make it very clear to every other family in this city that you and Sophia are untouchable. That even looking at you wrong is a death sentence. And the matter-of-fact delivery should have horrified me. Instead, I felt something dark and primitive unfurl in my chest. Satisfaction. They'd threatened my daughter. They deserved whatever Dante did to them. What did that make me? I can't go back, I said, the realization settling over me like a shroud. To the apartment, to the diner, to any of it. Can I? Dante crossed to me in 3 strides, kneeling again, capturing my hands in his. No. That life is over, Elena. I'm sorry. But it's the truth. The moment you became mine, everything changed. I'm not yours, I protested weakly. His smile was sad, knowing. Yes, you are. You have been since the moment you stepped between me and Marco, since you looked at me with those defiant eyes and chose courage over survival. His grip tightened. And I'm yours. Completely. Irrevocably. Whether you want me or not, I don't know what I want. The words tore from somewhere deep. 3 weeks ago, I was just trying to make rent. Now I'm in a safe house because Russian mobsters tried to use me to murder the man who's obsessed with you? He offered quietly. Possessive of you? Willing to burn down half the city to keep you safe? All of that. I pulled one hand free, pressing it against my chest where my heart hammered. This is insane, Dante. We barely know each other. You can't just decide you own me. I don't own you. He caught the hand I'd freed, brought it to his lips, pressed a kiss to my palm that sent heat spiraling through me. I want to deserve you. Want to earn the right to keep you. Want to build something with you that isn't based on fear or obligation, but choice. How can I choose when you've taken away every other option? You can choose to leave. The words seemed to cost him. Right now. Tonight. I'll set you up somewhere far from here. New identities for you and Sophia. Enough money to start over. Protection until the Volkov situation is handled. You'll never see me again. My breath caught. You'd let me go. I'd hate it. It would destroy me. His eyes burned into mine. But I'd do it. Because keeping you prisoner isn't having you. And I want all of you, Elena. Your trust. Your feelings. Eventually. Not your fear. The offer was genuine. I could see it in the tension bracketing his mouth, the white-knuckle grip he had on my hand, the barely leashed desperation in his gaze. I could leave. Take Sophia and disappear. Start over somewhere safe, except... Would anywhere be truly safe now? Would I spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, wondering if someone from Dante's world would find us? Wondering if he'd changed his mind about letting me go? And, God help me, did I even want to leave? These past 3 weeks had been terrifying and overwhelming and completely surreal, but they'd also been something else. Dinners where someone listened to me like I mattered. Phone calls checking if I'd eaten, if I was safe, if I needed anything. The way Dante looked at me like I was precious instead of invisible. The security of knowing someone powerful actually cared whether I lived or died. When was the last time anyone had cared like that? What would it mean? I asked carefully. Staying. Choosing you. What would my life look like? Hope flickered across his features, quickly suppressed. Safe. You and Sophia would have everything you need. Home, school, security. You'd never have to work 3 jobs again. Never have to choose between rent and food. In exchange for what? You let me take care of you. You accept my protection. He paused, choosing words carefully. You give us a chance. Let me court you properly. No more coercion, no more forcing situations. Just time. To see if this thing between us could become something real. And if it doesn't? If I decide we don't work? Pain lanced across his expression, but he answered steadily. Then we figure out a different arrangement. You'd still be under my protection. That's not negotiable, not after tonight. But I wouldn't push for more than you're willing to give. I studied him, this powerful, dangerous man kneeling before me like a supplicant, offering me everything and asking for a chance. I have conditions, I heard myself say. Relief flooded his features. Anything. Sophia comes first, always. Her safety, her happiness, her normal childhood. She doesn't get exposed to whatever you do. To the violence. To any of it. Agreed. She'll be as protected and sheltered as I can make her. I need to work. Maybe not at the diner, but something. I can't just sit around being taken care of. I'll lose my mind. He considered this. What if I bought you a restaurant or a bakery? Something you could run, build into whatever you wanted. Yours, not mine. The offer was so outrageous I almost laughed. You can't just buy me a restaurant. I can. I will, if that's what you need. He shifted closer, his hand sliding up my arms. I have more money than I know what to do with, Elena. Let me use it to make you happy. I struggled for words. That's insane. That's love. The word dropped between us like a bomb. His eyes widened slightly, as if surprised he'd said it. Then he doubled down, his gaze intensifying, or the beginning of it. I don't know what else to call this need to see you smile, to know you're safe, to imagine a future where you look at me the way I look at you. My heart stuttered. Dante, you don't have to say it back. Don't even have to feel it. Not yet. He cupped my face again, his touch achingly gentle. Just give me time to prove I'm worth the risk. That's all I'm asking. I should have said no. Should have taken his offer to disappear and never looked back. Instead, I leaned forward and kissed him. It was clumsy, uncertain. I hadn't kissed anyone in years, and definitely never anyone like him. But his sharp inhale, the way his hands tightened on my face, the low groan that rumbled from his chest made me feel powerful in a way I'd never experienced. He took over the kiss within seconds, angling my head, deepening the contact until I was drowning in the taste of him. Whiskey and mint, and something uniquely Dante. His hands were everywhere, my face, my hair, my waist, pulling me closer until I was nearly in his lap. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes had gone nearly black with want. Is that a yes? His voice was hoarse. It's a maybe, I managed. A maybe that's willing to try. The smile that broke across his face transformed him, made him look younger, lighter, almost boyish in his joy. I'll take it, he breathed, pressing his forehead to mine. I'll take anything you'll give me and count myself blessed. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my restaurant, a small, intimate space in a good neighborhood with exposed brick walls and windows that caught the morning light. The sign above the door read, Elena's in elegant script, and the breakfast crowd was already filtering in. Marco worked the register, his GED certificate framed on the wall behind him, college acceptance letters arriving weekly. He'd grown 3 inches and filled out, no longer the haunted boy from the diner. Sophia was in the back office doing homework, her private school uniform pristine, her laughter ringing out as Yana helped her with math problems. And Dante. Dante sat at his usual corner table, laptop open but largely ignored, his eyes tracking me as I moved through my restaurant, my dream, my space. He came every morning, drank coffee, ate whatever I made him, conducted business calls in low Italian. Mostly, he just watched me with those dark, possessive eyes that still made my pulse race. The Volkov situation had been handled permanently. No one had asked me for details, and I hadn't asked for them. Some things were better left in the shadows where Dante lived half his life. But the other half, the half he shared with me, was surprisingly normal. Dinners together, helping Sophia with art projects, movie nights curled on his massive couch, slow kisses that led to more, building toward an intimacy I was finally ready to embrace. He'd asked me to move into the penthouse a dozen times. I kept saying no, kept holding on to my independence, my apartment with its fortress locks and pristine bathroom. But maybe soon. Maybe when I was ready to admit that this impossible thing had become real. "Coffee, Mr. DeLuca?" I asked, approaching his table with the pot. He looked up, and the heat in his eyes made my cheeks flush. "Always, Miss Martinez." 6 months, and he still called me that in public, still treated me with that careful, courtly respect even as his hand found mine under the table, thumb tracing circles on my palm. "How's the breakfast rush?" he asked. "Good, really good." I couldn't keep the pride from my voice. "We might actually make a profit this month." "You'll definitely make a profit." His smile was secretive. "I may have mentioned to certain business associates that Elena's has the best breakfast in the city, and when I recommend something, people listen." "Dante." I tried for stern, failed miserably. "You can't just manipulate customers to my restaurant. Watch me." He tugged me closer, voice dropping. "I'm going to manipulate everything I can to see you smile like that. To see you happy. Safe, mine." "Possessive," I accused. "Completely. No shame. No apology." "Have dinner with me tonight? Just us. I have something to ask you." My heart skipped. Should I be worried? Maybe. His eyes glittered with promise, or maybe very, very happy. "Guess you'll have to say yes to find out." I kissed him then, quick and sweet, aware of the customers watching, of Marco's knowing grin from the register. "Okay," I whispered. "Yes." Because somehow, impossibly, this had become my life. My choice. And I was finally ready to stop being afraid of it. The ring came 3 months later. Platinum with a single perfect diamond that caught light like captured stars. Dante presented it over dinner at the penthouse, dropping to one knee with Sophia watching. He'd asked her permission first, he told me later. Because she came first. Always. I said yes through tears and laughter and kisses that tasted like joy. The wedding was small, intimate. Just the people who mattered. Marco in a new suit, Anya and the household staff, a few of Dante's trusted men, Sophia as flower girl in a dress that made her look like a princess. And when Dante slipped the ring on my finger and promised to love and protect me for the rest of our lives, I believed him. Because he'd already proven it, every single day for almost a year. We honeymooned in Sicily, Dante's ancestral home, rolling hills and ancient olive groves and a villa where we made love under Mediterranean stars. Where he worshipped my body with hands that could be brutal, but were only ever gentle with me. Where I finally understood that possession and love weren't mutually exclusive. That being his meant being cherished, protected, adored. Life wasn't perfect. Dante's world still had darkness in it. Threats that emerged and were handled, business that required his ruthless attention. Moments when I saw the dangerous man beneath the loving husband, but he kept that world away from Sophia and me. Kept us safe in the light while he handled the shadows. Elena's expanded, became 2 restaurants, then 3. I hired other single mothers, paid them living wages, gave them the chance I'd needed years ago. Marco graduated college. Dante gave him a position in the legitimate side of the business. Real estate development, completely legal. Everything the boy had never dared dream. And Sophia grew up strong and happy, with a stepfather who adored her, and a mother who no longer had to choose between rent and food. 5 years after that day in the diner when everything changed, I stood in our bedroom, our home now, the penthouse I'd finally agreed to share, watching the sun set over the city. Dante's arms wrapped around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder, his hands settling over my stomach where our child grew. A son, we'd learned last week. A brother for Sophia. "Happy?" he murmured against my ear. I leaned back into his strength, his warmth. his unwavering presence. Yes, I whispered. So happy. And I was. Because I'd learned that sometimes the most dangerous choice was the right one. That being seen could be terrifying and beautiful. That love didn't always look the way you expected. Sometimes it looked like a mafia boss kneeling in a diner, seeing you when the world had made you invisible. Sometimes it looked like coming home,